Welcome to Bethlahem Institute of Engineering. Bethlahem Institute of Engineering is affiliated to Anna University, Chennai and approved by AICTE, New Delhi. This institution was established in the year 2008.
Hi everyone, today we are going to see about the batteries and its types. Batteries have become one of the most important and most useful equipment these days. Batteries are used where power supply is not regular, where low voltage is required. First of all, we can see the definition for battery. A battery is a source of energy obtained by the chemical energy from the chemical reaction into electrical energy. Thus, battery represent a silent form of energy producing chemical device which generate electricity on demand. And we have two types of battery classification. One is primary battery, another one is secondary battery. The primary battery means it can be used for only single use. Secondary battery can be used for repeated use. That means primary battery is non-rechargeable. Cell reactions are irreversible. Okay, once the charge is discharged, we cannot recharge it. For example, it is used in torch, portable radios, toys, novelties, etc. And next one is secondary battery. Secondary batteries are rechargeable. That means the cell reactions are reversible. There are many types of secondary batteries, that is lead acid battery, nickel cadmium battery, nickel ion battery, nickel metal hydride battery, lithium ion battery, lithium ion polymer battery, etc. So now we are going to see about the secondary batteries. The secondary batteries contain following components, that is cathode, anode, electrolyte, separator and the container. See, in this figure, we can easily see the uh, batteries constructions. That is, there is a container which carry the electrolyte solution, and in the electrolyte solution, anode and cathode are dipped, and the anode and cathode are separated by the separator. See, here is an electrolyte, and this is an anode, and this is a cathode, and this is a separator. So, the cell is a unit of a battery. Number of cells combined to form a battery. Okay, so we have seen that there are anode, cathode, separator, electrolyte are present inside the batteries. Now we can see what anode do, what cathode do, and what is the use of electrolyte. Anode is an oxidation reactor which release electrons. Okay, anode will oxidize during the chemical reaction and it emits the electron. Cathode is a reduction reaction which consumes the electron. The electron which is released by the anode is travel through the electrolyte and it can be attracted by the cathode. Like that the reaction take place, and this reaction gives us the voltage. Electrolyte is an ion conducting medium which conduct ions between the electrodes. Electrodes means that anode and cathodes, so that the above reaction can take place. And this is the working principle. See, in the container we are having the electrolyte and we are having the anode and cathode, and the circuit is given. So we are seeing that electron is emitted and small voltage is produced, and this is the simple working principle of a battery. Normally, a lead acid battery are commonly used in automobiles for starting purpose, lightning, ignition, and trucks. And many applications are there for lead acid battery. See, in lead acid battery, anode is lead, cathode is lead oxide, and electrode is H2SO for sulfuric acid. Hydrochloric sulfuric acid is an electrolyte. See, the cell voltage is 2.0 volts. So, in lead acid battery, there's a group of cell, and in each cell there is an one group of positive plates and one group of negative plates. The positive plates are made up of lead peroxide. Okay, that is PbO2, lead peroxide, and negative plate is made up of sponge lead, that is Pb. Thus, for identification, the positive plates and the color of the dark brown, where the negative plates are as of light salt. So, the construction consists of a separator. It is the most important part of the lead acid battery, which separates the positive and negative plate from each other and prevent the short circuit. The separator must be a porous so that the electrolyte may circulate between the plates. The separator must have higher insulating resistance and mechanical strength. The material used for separator are wood, rubber, glass, etc. And we can also use PVC. Then the second one is electrolyte. Electrolyte in lead acid battery is sulfuric acid, diluted sulfuric acid. For this purpose, one part of concentrated sulfuric acid is mixed with the three part of diluted water. The next one is container. The container is a box made up of vulcanized rubber or molded plastic or glass or ceramic, etc. On the basis of this box, there are supported blocks on which the positive and negative plates are established. Thus, between this support, there are grooves which works like a mud box. The active material separated from the plate get collected in this mud box and it cannot make the contact with the plates, thus the internal fall due to mud are avoided. Covers of cells. In lead acid battery, it is also made up of same material which is used for making container. It is used to cover the complete cell after the installation of all the plates in it. It protects the cell from the dust as well as other external impurities. And in lead acid battery, we have a vent. The purpose of vent is to provide the plate of the cell which are used to fill up the electrolyte or the inspection of internal condition of the cell. The vent are used The vent also used for the exhaust gas generated in the cell to the atmosphere. During the chemical reaction, there will be some exhaust gas produced, and this exhaust gas can be uh, taken to the atmosphere to this vent plug. Then connecting bar. It works like a link and used to connect the two cells in series, terminal of one cell and negative terminal of another cell. So now that diluted sulfuric acid used for lead acid battery has the ratio of acid water is 1 is to 3. The sulfuric acid in the battery is formed by dipping lead peroxide plate and sponge lead plate in a dilutic acid. A load is connected externally between the plates where we see in the working principle there is a anode and cathode, that is one is uh, lead peroxide and another one is lead, and the electrolyte solution is sulfuric acid, diluted sulfuric acid. Now an external circuit is connected between the plates. In the diluted sulfuric acid, the molecules of acid split into positive hydrogen ions and negative sulfate ions. The hydrogen ions, when react at lead peroxide plate, they receive electron from it and become hydrogen atom, which again attract uh, the lead peroxide and form lead peroxide and H2O. that is water. This PbO reacts with sulfuric acid and form PbSO4 and water. Thus, see, we have seen here the reactions during the charging. At positive plates, the reaction take place, that is PbSO4 plus H2O plus PbO plus 4H, that is hydrogen ions is emitted here, and again the reaction takes place 2H2O plus O2, that is oxygen, plus 4H plus, that is hydrogen, plus 4 electrons is emitting. And negative plate, PbSO4 plus 2 electrons plus Pb plus SO4. This is the overall reaction in which taken place in the lead acid battery. And raw material is cheap. Why we are going for the lead acid battery means the raw material is cheaper and also can be recovered from the scrap. Okay. For example, if you're having vehicles in our home, we can know, well, we are going to buy a battery. Uh, there, by exchanging the old battery, there will be some amount of money is reduced to getting the new battery. Okay. The supply of high power over a wide range of temperature, very high reversibility. So while we are going for rechargeable, the reaction will take reverse. Okay. Availability of mass production techniques, availability of multi-battery configuration, maintenance free. So next we are going to see about the starter system in automobile. Okay, in earlier days we used manpower to start the engine. In later days, uh, due to the developments and due to the research made in the side of automobile side, the starting system is introduced. So where the human energy is or human effort is reduced. The starting system includes battery, starter motor, solenoid valve or solenoid switch, ignition switch, and in some cases a starter relay. See, we can see the systematic diagram of starting system. We have the battery, we having the starter motor and solenoid starter and neutral safety switch, starter relay, ignition switch. See, these are the components in the starting system. Uh, a neutral safety switch is included in the starting system circuit to prevent the vehicle from being started while it's gear. Okay, if your vehicle is in gear, if it is get started, it may cause some accident because when the engine is in neutral condition only, we can start the engine. It is safe. See, as we see, the battery is one of the components of starting system, and we know battery is an electrochemical device for storing chemical energy so that it can be released in electricity for crank and engine and power the electrical loads. Also, a group of electrical cells connected to it. Then starting motor, a small, powerful electric motor that converts electrical energy from the battery into mechanical energy to spin the crankshaft and start the engine. Starter motor. A starter is an electrical motor that turns over or crank the engine to start it. A starter consists of very powerful DC electric motor and the starter solenoid that is usually attached to the motor. Inside a typical starter motor has an electrical winding, that means coil, attached to the starter motor housing and the armature. Armature is a rotating part in this starter motor that is connected through the carbon brushes in series with the winding. On the front end of the armature, there is a small gear that attached to the armature through a overrunning clutch. So, while we are going to start a bike or a car, nowadays in bike also we having the self-starting system. Uh, Whenever we are going to start the car or a bike, uh, The starter motor has a gear. The gear will be meshed with the flywheel arrangement to run the crank, and this part is known as Bendex. Okay, solenoid, a electromechanical device. It is a combination of electrical and mechanical device which, when connected to the electrical source, such as a battery, produce a mechanical movement. See, this is the starter motor gear. See, the starter solenoid works as a powerful electric relay when activated. It closes the electrical circuit and sends the battery power to the starter motor. At the same time, the starter solenoid pushes the starter gear forward to mesh with the engine flywheel. A typical starter solenoid has one small connector for the control wire and two large terminals, one for the positive battery cable and other for the starter motor. See, we have the connections of starter solenoid. Why we need this starter solenoid means once the ignition switch is on, the gear from the starter motor should engage with the flywheel arrangement. Okay, when the ignition switch is released or when the engine gets started, again that gear should come back to its original position. Otherwise, when the flywheel rotates and this starter motor gear also mesh with that flywheel, and there will be cause for a wear and tear in that gear, so that it will get repaired soon. So when required, the gear should be pushed towards the flywheel, and when the function is over, that means when the engine gets started, the gear should come back to its original position. For that purpose, we are using this starter solenoid. And ignition switch, the key operated main power switch that opens the and close the electrical circuit that supply current to the ignition and other electrical system. So normally we have uh, ignition switch and in every automobiles. Okay, neutral switch, switch wired into the ignition which to prevents engine crank unless the transmission shift lever is in neutral. So nowadays in the modern vehicles, if the vehicle is in gear, after we apply the clutch, that means after applying the clutch only we can get start the engine. Otherwise, there will be a small damage to the gears, or the vehicle will get jerked. So in order to prevent all these things, you are having the neutral safety switch. Relay, an electrical device that open or close the circuit in response to voltage signal. See, battery cables. This is the connection given to the starter motors for starting systems. See, the starter motor requires a very high current to crank the engine. That's why it is connected to the battery with thick cable. The negative is grounded. The positive cable connects the positive battery terminal. See here the positive, that it is denoted by the red color, is a positive terminal to the starter solenoid. To start the automobile engine, the crank must turn fast enough for an air fuel mixture to enter the cylinder. See, this is a battery, this is the ignition switch, and this is the relay and etc. And this is the crank where the flywheel. This is a starter motor and this is the flywheel. When the ignition switch is ignited, the circuit closed, and the current passes through that starter relay and to the starter motor, and that starter motor pushes the gear and mesh with the flywheel, and the flywheel is rotated with the high speed. So only the air fuel mixture to can enter the cylinder. The electric starter or a starter motor does this job. It converts the electrical form of energy from the battery into the mechanical energy that rotates the crankshaft. Starting system has two separated but related circuits. That is, low circuit control unit, high circuit motor unit. Both operates on the battery only. When the drive turns, the ignition key to the start the control circuit. Thus, heavy contact to the closed in starter relay or solenoid switch. High current that flows from the battery insulated cable through the contact to the starter motor. See, when the ignition switch is ignited, one key is with the neutral safety switch, and another key is connected with the starter motor, that is solenoid, starter solenoid. When the solenoid is activated, the starter motor get activated and rotates the flywheel to crank. A gear on the starter motor shaft moves into mesh with the ring gear around the engine flywheel or drive plate. As the starting motor shaft turns, it spins the crank fast enough to the start engine. See, there will be some troubles. Basically, when the vehicle get breakdown, first we will check the battery whether the signal electrical supply is more enough to start the engine. So, basic starting system troubles are the engine does not crank. So, when we ignite the ignition switch, the crank does not rotate. So there is a trouble if the starting system. So we have to check all this. The engine cranks slowly but does not stop. So if the battery is weak or the solenoid switch is not in a good condition or the coils has some damage means it can rotate but it can not get the required torque or a required speed to start the engine. The engine crank normally but does not start. The problem may be in some fuel injection system or in the carburetor, etc. Or the fuel is not supplied to the carburetor or to the cylinder properly. The other complaints may if there is some fault in relay or in solenoid, also the trouble may can occur. The slow disengage of the pinion from the ring gear. Suppose if you're giving the power to the circuit, that means the power is get closed. Sorry, the circuit is closed. The starter motor activated the help of starter solenoid and the small gear that is present in the starter motor mesh with the ring gear in the flywheel. And at once when the ignition switch is released, that is means when we release the key, at the fraction of seconds that gear should return back to its original position. Otherwise, there will be a engaging in the ring gear and the gear teeth will be get damaged. So when the next time when we using the gear to start the engine, the gear may not mesh with the ring gear or the gear may be get slipped so that the required speed cannot be torque cannot be obtained in the flywheel which can use to start the engine. Also, next this is the systematic diagram for